sponsored by Sue Minahan.
Welcome to Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Rose Minahan and her panel of guests bring you insightful conversations to awaken consciousness for soul growth. Come journey with us through astrology's energetic cycles and get ready to understand your path in the cosmic roots of the stars.
Hello, I'm Sue Minahan, and this is Talk Cosmos, August 18, my anniversary. Long time. And it is also the day before the Democratic Convention. The sky is lit up. This is a new series that started off with inspiration from April 21st, when another stellar conjunction occurred between let's just say it was the USA Chiron return. It's the fifth one we've had, and we'll go into that more detail later. And we are preaching what we teach, because session after session, the panels have been saying, get your action going. It's a call to action. The universe loves action. The world is a constant change. What else could it be but action, whether we see it or not? So we do have this new panel, which is U.S. Currents Global, an astrological perspective, with a mini series, U.S. 24 elections. Okay, we are ready now for the panel. Thank you.
Examining significant United States domestic politics and foreign affairs through the astrological perspective of the celestial map of the sky to understand the impact on each individual around the globe, this is your U.S. Global Currents panel.
I'm Sue Rose Minahan, founder of Talk Cosmos since 2018. I'm an evolutionary astrologer, consultant, speaker, writer, vibrational astrology student, Dwarf Planet University graduate, Kepler Astrology Toastmasters Club charter member. I have a fine arts music degree plus a certificate in jazz. I'm an artist, musician, and certified color energy life coach. Especially, I love mythology and esoteric philosophies.
I'm Michael Bartlett, master metaphysical astrologer and the author of 2 books, Astrological Mavericks, You Have What It Takes to Change the World, and Astro Theater, a revolutionary look at the ancient art of astrology. Given my core energetic training, highly intuitive nature, 4 decades of business experience, over 2 decades of astrological wisdom, all give me an extensively resourced toolbox. I focus on esoteric and traditional astrology while incorporating the depths of the outer planets. I offer experiential intensives, mentoring, groups, readings, speaking engagements, and workshops. I was the past interim president of Kepler College and still do classes for them.
I'm Robert Pizzetti, professional consulting astrologer and the visionary behind Deep Earth Astrology and the Deep Earth Astrology Tarot, a divination tool and teaching aid that integrates astrology, herbalism, and natural reverence. I specialize in vibrational and psychological techniques and infuse my practice with a deep connection to nature's spirituality. I'm currently the Grand Pendragon in the Ancient Order of Druids in America and the director of the Magus Gathering in Gore, Virginia.
I'm Justin Crocodilzy, an archetypal Jyotish astrologer, yoga and meditation teacher, and author. I combine both Western ancient astrology and modern psychological astrology with Eastern Vedic astrology, and I specialize in predictive, electional, and karmic astrology for individuals and couples. I also do in-depth astrological research into arcane astrological concepts, focusing on the mystical, occult side of astrology.
And I'm John Chenworth, a Seattle astrologer with more than 25 years' experience. I use a blend of evolutionary, traditional, and archetypal techniques and constantly attend workshops and lectures to further hone my skills. I hold an MFA in Poetics, an MA in Teaching, and an astrological diploma. I've lectured at NORWAC and served on the WSAA board. I have worked in general and special education classrooms, both as a teacher and mentor. I also enjoy reading, penning poems, riding a bike, and going on road trips around the great state of Washington.
Rock musician Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention says,
"A mind is like a parachute. It doesn't work if it's not open."
Ooh, land off or take off. Hi to everybody. Yes.
Hey,
Just
Sue, everybody.
Rob, and Michael, and John. This is just fantastic. We are the day before the Democratic elections. Well, we'll begin. this, everyone, is how to connect with people. And we'll also have more for their websites. Everybody is consultants, and you can find it on Talk Cosmos too. It all began, you could say, this inspiration with the Chiron turn for the United States Sibley chart, which is 1776. It's our 4th of July. Hurrah, hurrah. And in that, we asked about identity, because when Chiron's in Aries, it's us, it's ourself. Can I be myself? There's that wound, but we're claiming identity. It's the 5th rodeo that we're doing. We could say that's a little bit vernacular. And there's repeating themes. And this happens to be the picture if you want to go back and listen to it. Who belongs? You, me, etc. The marginal folks that are part of and constructing this country, which we love. And there's always a struggle within that dynamics, and presidential issues already, as it was brought to my attention. Justin, we've already had an assassination attempt and a resignation. Who would have thought that in April? Amazing. So thank you, Justin. Crockett Elsie, bringing this to our attention. We now are inspired to find out what's happening. There's 3 of these Chiron returns right now. One was in April 20th, the same time gas planets, Jupiter and Uranus, smack dab together at 26 degrees Taurus. And then the next one will be just after the election, 3 days, November 8th. We'll have another talk following that. And next year, February 18th, which made me realize we'll have January and February too. Chiron, it's a bridge. It's the inner and the outer. It's really a dynamic. It's very coarse, intersects, as you can see here. It's a mediator between our material and spiritual. It's big news. It's an 8-year cycle in Aries because it's so elliptical. Pisces and Aries, 8 years. Otherwise, it goes down to like 2 or 3 in their polarity signs. And there's a few wonderful quotes. David Hume, a Scottish philosopher, says it's when we start working together that the real healing takes place. It's not just about me, but sometimes the wound hurts so much. It's like, oh, what do I do? Until we figure out, hey, it's got a grander purpose or something. It works. We focus on that. And healing yourself, Yoko says, is connected with healing others. Just a comment, there are out-of-bound planets. Those are rogue planets. Michael has about his Maverick, a book about Mavericks, and you'll see that in the bio. Out of bounds, it's beyond the elliptical. That's where the sun is. It's actually a latitude, 23 degrees and 27 minutes from the equator, north or south. And right now, Ceres, which is a dwarf planet, often thought of as an asteroid, is for like half a year, all the way up till 2025. That's where we claim our grief to nurture ourselves. And Kamala, she has that out of bounds, like many, many people do. And Tim Waltz has his Venus out of bounds. But the USA, we have Venus, Mars, and Pluto. So we're a bit. I want to thank Justin again for charts. We're going to start, and I'm going to pause and let folks talk. We have so many, so I really wanted to pump this through. We have Kamala Harris, the Democratic nominee, born October 20th, 1964. This is an AA chart, I believe, and it's 9:28 p.m. in California, Oakland. She is a full moon child.
Yeah, Justin, you definitely circled the right stuff on this chart, I would say.
Actually, I generated the chart and Sue did all the circling and the.
Yeah, I did the little artwork behind the scenes.
That's good work, Sue. I mean, it's so clear. I mean, that Venus, Pluto, Uranus action going on in the 4th house, that kind of compulsive need to break free from those tradition Virgo values, and if you look into her mother was, an Indian scientist who came and joined the radical movements going on in California and kind of fell in love with the radical culture. And, seeing that fourth house is like her youth and how she was raised, like breaking out of that traditional Virgo kind of housewife mentality that you can associate with Virgo. And that kind of being that, you see that Chiron up there, the wound of faith in the ability to exceed at the highest level in the world. It's very interesting. And then if anybody wants to talk about that Virgo full moon, anybody with a Virgo, or I'm sorry, an Aries full moon, that's really going to charge everything.
Exactly. And I will comment, because we both do vibrational, that when you have this generational, it's not really generational because it wasn't a long period, but it was between 1964, particularly in 66, when there was this conjunction which revolutionized life as we know it. And today is actually the first, okay, don't jump, Sue. Uranus is now time, and Pluto is obsessed with going deep. So those souls, which both of these candidates are possessed, you could say, with working with now, changing it all the time.
They're bringing in that configuration from the 1960s. People born in the mid-60s had that Uranus-Pluto conjunction, and they were born at the time of all the civil rights. And this is like the perfect timing. We have someone who could be president who brings that the best of the 60s in, which is really nice. At the time when we're having the Chiron return, it's a time to heal. I think it's kind of a beautiful thing.
Thank you, John.
And thank you, John. And I might point out that since we're talking about Venus, Kamala is actually having a Venus return right now with this, because Venus is currently in Virgo. And that Venus, one of the things that jumped out at me with this chart is that Venus is trining Jupiter. And so this can give a level of depth of charisma with the personality. And to the T square, which Sue's pointed out here, her Mars is squares her Jupiter, and the Mars squares Neptune. So this can bring sort of, she has this strength, but she needs some outlet for it.
Yes.
And so that's that, she's destiny. There's a bit of destiny here because the North Node being on the ascendant. So it's almost like she needs something for an outlet to express that power out of that T square.
Wonderful. And Michael, I know you had a thought there. You got sort of, go ahead.
Lots of, several thoughts. One is also that midheaven conjunct the Saturn in Aquarius. It's retrograde. I often find when there's Saturn with Uranus, Saturn in Aquarius on the midheaven, there's an inclination for airline sort of thing. There's a way of being able to handle things at a high organizational level. So I love that she's got the Chiron and the midheaven in Pisces with her Vesta. So there's that deep sensing and feeling that Saturn's retrograde, but there's an understanding of how to govern that really, I think, is about working with people. This is a person, this isn't, I don't see a lot of ego, clear, not like what we have with our other one with, the other person who we're going to be speaking of shortly, who also has Mars in Leo. This is someone who's a little bit more tempered, shall we say.
Yeah. And I might also point out she has a grand water trine in her chart. She has a water trine between Chiron, Hygeia, and Neptune. So I think in my experience, that kind of represents sort of this healer for the collective, since it's a water trine. Just thought
yes, empathetic, very empathetic.
And just to piggyback on that, I pulled her strongest vibration in her harmonic charts, and it's vibration 295. She has this wonderful energy, and that is all about somebody who really believes in sticking to tradition but wants to play with it in a way where it can be modernized, and that is really where I see her expressing that Chiron in the 10th house, in that Pisces sign, is just bringing creativity to how we can do this country in a new way.
Yeah, 4th and 10th house. How amazing. Yes, it's that parental, you could say. That's
well, and so that's also that Mercury trine Saturn. So there's, that communications with Saturn brings a seriousness to it.
Good point.
and persistence and really a heart and mind balancer with Mercury opposite the moon, you know.
And Saturn really wants to get to the essential core. So it's focused. Now, Timothy, this is his full name, Timothy James Waltz. And we go by Tim Waltz mostly. His natal chart is April 6, 1964. Between the two of them, they are a full moon themselves. It's just incredible. It's April, it's Aries and Libra, but we don't have a natal time yet. I imagine somebody might manage to get through and be allowed to get his chart of the groups, but we're using a sunrise chart. That was Justin's idea, and it's a wonderful way. So don't look at the houses. This is just looking at the time the sun rose. And he was born, though, in West Point, Nebraska. He made a big comment at that, I know, in the news. Here we have too many things, but we have 2 T-squares. That means lots of action. Squares are action. And people look at the open house often to find where that wants to get directed. But one is with Mars. It squares his nodes. His nodes are, again, in those Cancer and Capricorn, which is all cardinal. And again, the constructive, as we had discussed before, about like ruled by Saturn and the moon, of timing and organization. And then another one is Venus, along with, go ahead, folks.
I think Libra answers that. Mars in Aries, and he spent a lifetime in diplomatic roles, kind of maybe to answer that missing leg, being a teacher and public service and all the things he's done. So he's kind of answered that Mars in Aries very well. Like a lifetime of practice of doing the Libra thing.
Good point. And they're sextile, aren't they? Gemini, and not Gemini, Venus and Mars are sextile. So the 2 midpoints of the squares are in sextile. So he juggles or constructs. It's one homogeneous function.
And I think he might enjoy it. Sextiles, like, I like this energy. I can work with it. It's really fun.
I was shocked that there was not more Sagittarius in his chart when I first was exposed to him. He read very Sagittarius to me. But if you look there at that T-square between Saturn and Uranus and Venus, that is a heavy T-square to have. And I always look at the opposition of the focal point to kind of be where it resolves. Where does it resolve? It resolves right on Juno in that Sagittarius sign. That is like kind of a commitment to that Jupiterian nature. That is a fundamental truth for him, and that is how he's going to resolve this T-square, is by being this jubilant, Jupiterian Santa Claus almost like figure. And I know this is not necessarily his birth time, but it would be very interesting if it was accurate, because it being in the 8th house and kind of other people's money, and a lot of his kind of like more progressive mentality would really play well with how that all kind of works out with the resolution to the T-square.
Well, I might point out in my experience that the houses you can find some accuracy at sunrise with where the planets are in the houses. And so there is something to that for another discussion. But I agree with everything everybody's saying. And I think, to your point about that Santa, I think that shows up with that Jupiter-Mercury conjunct, that are conjunct, and then it squares the moon. So he has sort of this outgoing nature.
First house, right? Oh, well, that's right.
And then, of course, he's got that Venus opposition with Juno, and Mars sextiling Venus, which trines Juno. So he's definitely likes to emotionally connect with others. To the T-square is interesting, because I think the T-square with Mars and the nodes, there's going to be something in his life about when to take action and when not to take action. That can be a little indecision. And because his Mercury's in Taurus, he's a little bit of a contemplative thinker. He's not going to, he's going to think and contemplate before he takes action.
Actually, that's very strong, because I'm thinking as a vice president, that's a supportive factor to really think about things. But yet, if there is a decision, he's following some direction. There is a hierarchy of having that factor. And I really love this, drawing attention through different factors with Sagittarius and Jupiter, because as you've both all been mentioning, Juno, which is a marriage, but also our alliances in that in Sagittarius there, which is the focal point, and then being ruled by really a conjunction, 8 degrees, but with the sun, that's okay. In Aries, all that fire, it's a fire trine. Thank you. I wouldn't have seen all that.
And he also has so where she's got a grand water trine, he's got a grand earth trine between his south node, Pluto, and Mercury.
Michael, did you have a thought here?
I'm just intrigued by what Pluto is doing by transit to his chart right now, to his moon, to his Saturn to a lesser extent, to his Mars, and to his Venus. I mean, this is really quite a powerful activation time for him.
I was thinking that too, a great supportive role. If we had the Grammys here or some kind of global, one of the award systems, yes, I think he is really a strong candidate for Kamala.
And just from the very basics 101 of astrology, we're talking about somebody with a lot of Aries in their chart, and the happy warrior is how he's kind of been described in the media a lot. And it's just so obvious. I mean, if you're a Hellenistic astrologer and all that's in one house, I mean, that's going to be a superstellium of magnitude, So, I mean, it's very interesting to see how this is all going to unfold. And I love him, to be honest. That's just my personal opinion, though.
It was so great with all that Aries then to have a Taurus Mercury and to have a Venus and Gemini. I mean, these are really, it kind of gives me goosebumps. And the Aquarian moon, I mean, he's got these very strong immediate aspects about himself. And then he's got these very thoughtful kind of reviewing parts. And then you got the Uranus, Pluto, Chiron, which of course she shares as well. I mean, really quite an advocate, I would say. I mean, I don't know. I haven't been paying much attention as far as what his background is in, but I would say that he'd be an amazing advocate.
He's gone through his struggles too. I mean, he had a DUI at one point in 1995, and this is kind of one of the things that led me to lean on the Sag thing. Is when the cop pulled him over for the DUI, he pretended like he was deaf. Like he couldn't. That's an actual true story. And he's just like, I can't hear you.
Mercury and Taurus, right?
Exactly.
Well, he was in shock. There's a shock element.
And the Aries, you think of the head. You know what I mean?
No one's coming in here.
But I think really that Venus T-squaring, Venus of values, of self-reliance, of relationships in Gemini that let's gather the information and get better values, is really working with essential Saturn that's looking at traditions and the core of things. So it was probably a quite reflective factor, because that is 97. That's when Bob, 30, almost 27 years ago. So obviously he's remade himself, and it's with the T-square with Uranus that wants to look at life right now and transform it. Yeah, I think he used that to his best ability.
That was his last drink. Okay, after that DUI.
That's what I'm saying. That was the leveling, because we all, hopefully we find our bottom point. And really that applies to the United States of America. We are in this Chiron return for a while. We're having 2 more. And it's like, it's a process. Kamala, we're looking now at their synastry, which is the inside with Kamala compared to Tim Waltz on the outside. And I don't know why I have a blue arrow following both. Somehow things got turned around. But there's a few thoughts here. And one is there's a T-square essentially in a way, because it's a little out of sign. But the moon's at 27 degrees. Well, her full moon at 27 degrees, and his square between the sun, Jupiter and the moon bring in that T-square.
For a political arrangement, I mean, what could be better than his Jupiter on top of her moon and opposite his sun? I mean, what else could you he's her man. You know what I mean? Like that he's juicing her up at all times. And I mean, as far and everything that I've seen, like this chart reads very well, you know?
Yeah, and to support that, his son trines her Mars.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
there's that support towards what she wants to accomplish.
Beautiful. Any other comments, or should we roll on?
I will say just two more
Uh-huh.
things. They're actually their Saturns, because they are born in the same year. Their Saturns are conjunct, so they are like thick as thieves there, right?
Oh.
And one other thing, their Mars are sesquadrate. So there is some dynamics there where they will definitely he'll challenge there, or at least bring in different ideas to where they want.
Lots of action. Yeah, that's for folks to realize that's 135 degrees, and that's a square, which is action, and half a square of 45 degrees. So it feeds a lot of brainstorming at its best, how to move ahead. So looking at their characters, that they have this reflective basis, it's hopeful. Okay, I'll move on. I'm trying to squeeze things in before our getaway point at the mid hour. So we have here a Davison between the two of them. This is where they combine. It's a technique that the computer does. That is actually a chart that you can do many astrological timing techniques with. And we're not going to look at it in huge detail, but I just wanted to bring together that combining, because there's a composite. All this is astrological jargon for those that don't do this. But a Davison, here it puts that Jupiter in the 12th, right before, well, if we don't quite know Tim's birth time, but it's in Taurus. And I thought how wonderful to have Venus and Mars together. And of course, it is a Cancer sun, which this nation is a Cancer sun.
Yeah, it's wordsmithing in Gemini, like that's a good combination. It's the wordsmith. They're going to choose the right words that are going to be attractive to the people to get things done. And in the second house, it's going to be tipping right into their values. And that's exactly what they're doing.
Goody. John, do you have go ahead.
They're choosing healing words. There's Hygeia, that wonderful asteroid right next to those planets, which I think is really beautiful.
Good news. Chiron has a chance. Goody.
I would say really, loving communication for that. That's right. It's Mars and Venus. So I think that's really a great harmonic there. What I find most intriguing, though, is the highest planet is Saturn, and it's in Pisces, and it's retrograde. The next after that is Vesta and Chiron. It's really, I think they'd be really good behind the scenes. I bet they do a lot of their work better behind the scenes, and that smithing and the work that goes on there, and then how to present it.
Good point, because if it is in the third house, their sun, they are connecting and communicating all the time, and in a nurturing Cancerian way, meaning we care about you, our other legislative people, and collecting all these ideas. And it seems when I've read about Saturn retrograde, that is a chance for us to be our own role model. So they're going to help forge us through. I think it is the break time. Oh boy, what do we have next? Well, we have the convention next, but we will be back. And we are so glad to have everybody with us now and listening later. So Justin, Rob, Michael, and John and myself will all be back. Stay tuned to U.S. Global Currents. While we take a break from this week's edition of Talk Cosmos, let's take a look at this cycle's archetype. We are currently in the Yang period of Leo, ruled by the solar sun. Having departed from a cycle based on the internal process of emotional attachments requiring security and safety, the energy of Leo externally manifests our legacy through children and artistic creations. As a fixed Yang fire sign that desires to ignite actualization, Leo the Lion takes the risk to generously exhibit love and welcome all to share their stage with joyous pleasure for living life.
This is Martha Norwalk every Sunday morning beginning at 9 a.m. Thanks in part to Natasha Venter at intuitiveclarifications.com. We cover the world of animals. This week, August 25th, it's an encore presentation. Tune in to hear our last healing show with Dr. Nels and Linda Rasmussen. Together, they helped listeners and their animal friends with emotional, physical, and behavioral issues, and you can receive a surrogate healing just by listening and following along with Linda's instructions. Martha Norwalk's Animal World, Sunday morning, 9 a.m. to noon, right here on Alternative Talk, AM 1150.
Talk Cosmos brings insightful conversations to awaken consciousness for the soul growth with hour-long programs every Sunday at 1 p.m. Pacific on KKNW. Talk Cosmos weekly programs are also available to watch live on the Talk Cosmos YouTube channel and Facebook page. While you're there, make sure you click the like and subscribe buttons so you get the full Talk Cosmos experience. Or if you'd rather listen to the show archives with audio only, the entire podcast collection since 2018 is available on most podcast carriers. And to find out about upcoming programs, sign up for the newsletter at talkcosmos.com. So grab your coffee, tea, or kombucha and enjoy the show.
Easy on the ears, good for the soul. Alternative Talk 1150.
Actually, I have all those videos now on Talk Cosmos, but you can find them many ways. That's the audio version of the earlier editions. We're going to return to this and just go with the slides and it'll work. So the convention is tomorrow, and we have a 7 o'clock time. Justin looked at the schedule, and they're convening for breakfast. The broadcast won't be until 9 o'clock Eastern, and then I think in Chicago it was 6:30. So check on the television to find out when you can tune in and hear all these wonderful speeches. But as far as the energies for this day, that's because there's previous ones, we're using the 7 o'clock Chicago Central Daylight Time. You can see that it's a Virgo ascendant ruled by Mercury. Think, think, think. Mercury is in retrograde right now. We are redoing things, and it is exactly conjunct the sun. I just love that. Kazemi, as far as I'm concerned, it was within that degree, not just 17 minutes, as some will say.
Yeah, and I might point out about the time because I like to be accurate. So the 7 a.m. is when the delegates start meeting for breakfast, and the caucus. So all these caucuses are going to happen in the morning time, like the LGBTQ caucus, the Hispanic caucus. So this is at 7 a.m. is the kickoff time on the DNC schedule. So that's where we came up with that time.
And to bring attention to people to that day also commemorates the first square since 2020. That was December 21st, 2020, when Saturn and Jupiter were conjunct, which was happens every 20 years, but this time it kicked off a larger cycle of 200 years in air signs when they do connect every 20 years. So it was in Aquarius, and this is the first time because it's a 20-year, cycle. At the same day, those are, as you can see, they're both at 17 degrees, and Mars, of course, which is conjunct just a couple of days ago with Jupiter. So that adds to the action of an expansion. Jupiter is expansion, Saturn is contraction, however we look at it. And it's like a gas pedal. Stop, go, refigure.
I mean, I'm looking at the focal points of both of those T-squares, and I'm seeing some interruption from protesters, for sure. You're looking at that, we're looking at the Mars, Jupiter, and Gemini. There's always going to be some sense of duality there. It's not a one message situation. And with that, we're looking at the Uranus and Taurus there, that in the house of spirituality, the house of law, in the house of, philosophy, there's going to be some interruption to the messaging that Virgo ascendant is going to want to be sending.
Yeah, I would agree, and that I think that just supports that Mercury retrograde. I think they will try, I think, out of this to connect with others. I think that'll be sort of a challenge connecting, but that Mercury is trining the Chiron, so the communications of who's valued in the collective. So I think there will be sort of a healing hope message that comes out of that because of Mercury trining Chiron.
Yeah. It just feels to me like they're going to try to go for this very like kind of like traditional liberal DNC, like hope and change, but there's going to be some wrenches thrown into the mix, you know?
There'll be food for the fodder. That's really true. We don't change doesn't happen unless we're trying to move beyond something and incorporate all these voices. It's going to be good. Anything else, John or Michael, or should we roll to the next?
What's the glyph that looks like Aries above Neptune?
Oh, that's the Aries point, and it was brought.
So yes, I was gonna. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
It was brought in. Justin and I are part of Toastmasters, and somebody there was bringing, if I have this correct, bringing focus to the idea that the Aries point, which is in March, that's when the spring equinox happens, of course, it really has a lot to say about the dynamics of, and Justin might remember this better, but the dynamics of the elections. And so we've introduced it.
Yeah, Monday in
Especially with that
astrology,
Neptune,
that Aries ingress shows what issues are going to be for the next year and that.
Oh,
Yeah, because I'd say
that'll
that
be
Neptune's very highly activated there, of course, now through March 30th, and I think it'll be
It's
definitely
right on the
playing a role
cusp,
through this
isn't
whole
it?
process. Yes.
Yeah, it's on the cusp because it does
Because-
ingress.
And the last time, we have to realize the last time that Neptune went into Aries to the day before is when the Civil War was declared in the United States, to the day, one day before.
The best news is that with some of the other charts, the supportive act, you could say, in the sky has another twist. And having Pluto in Aquarius, of course, it's not all roses. There's a lot of trauma involved on an evolutionary basis for astrology, but it's also more communicative. It's the community. And we're trying to connect on more of a, I mean, look at Biden right now. He's going, we're hoping this week, it's hard to know if we can actually, if somehow the collaborations can find a new resolution to some of those wars in the Middle East. But yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say the three outer planets, Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus, are all sextiling one another too. So that's a really powerful opportunity.
If we look back to like Bernadette Brady and talk about that Cazimi that we've got going on with the Mercury and the 12th house and Sun and Leo, that would actually be described as a good thing. It's like a direct portal into the collective unconscious. And if you're trying to send, a Leonic message of I'm the person who should be on top, and you have a portal to the collective unconscious, it certainly could be some interesting messaging, but I mean, I could see that being a positive.
Yes.
And we know that's conjunctor Mars.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
I love this. I know Maurice Fernandez, that I'm a student of in his course, would really look at the 12th house as a very powerful role for claim to fame, is my words of putting it, because of the fact, just what you were saying about it is the collective unconscious, and you can tap into that. John, do you have a thought, or else we're going to move on? Because we have like 15 more charts. I'm exaggerating. Little Jupiter with Mars. Yeah, that's right. And a half.
Can I say something about Vesta?
Quick, yes.
Right with the sun. Just that's like the battery of the convention, like we're here to shine. You know, there's something regal about it, which I kind of like.
The altar of life, yes, in Leo. Yes, I like it. Here we have two bi-wheels, and maybe we can run through these, which will be great. But the inner is Kamala, and then the outer is the DNC. Oh, we just did that. Okay, well, we're going to do Tim Waltz, the vice president.
We didn't do her with the DNC.
Oh, we didn't. No rats.
But you have it later on too. So.
Oh, okay. Well, then let's do Tim here. Immediately, I see that the moon and Pluto. So there's a lot of the convention is a transformational energy on his emotional basis, which it is. He's going to be the vice president nominee. Anybody else?
And Saturn on that Chiron.
Oh, yes. That's a healing process to bring solidification, perhaps more focus. To
Hygeia is on his Mercury, so another healing thing.
Yeah.
And with the Pluto being on top of his moon right there, I mean, it's like he's going to be the emotional messenger of the plutonic shift of Aquarius.
Oh, boy. I get excited. Sorry about this, folks. I hope it doesn't bother anybody listening, but I can't help it. I get around to the midheaven. Boing, boing, boing. Oh, boy, with Venus. John, something, or else we'll move.
You guys are so fast. I can't keep
Well,
up.
I'm going, yes, that's okay, because there's more meat to follow. This is just the hors d'oeuvres happening, or some part of the meal. We are U.S. Global Currents, Astrological Perspectives, and this is our series going through this year and probably into 2025 a bit about the U.S. 24 U.S. elections, and we're focused on the Democratic Convention. And again, these are our panelists, and you can find it on Talk Cosmos. Michael Bartlett, as you know, is, and I'm going to go through this, but Michael, you have many ways to get a hold of you, and you have written these books. I know that you have, let's see, here we go. The Relationship Guys, a wonderful YouTube that you started with Justin.
Yeah, we've been having a blast. It's been a lot of fun. Our last one was
Taylor
Swift
and Travis.
I know. Yeah. I just have to listen. Oh my goodness!
I loved that so much. Like, you have no idea.
I've loved every single one, and I've only listened to a few. They're on my watch list.
Thank you so much.
And Justin Crockett-Elsie, as you know, this is so if people can go back and find a little bit more, or go to Talk Cosmos. I have all the bios, 7th season. That's this year. Justin has his own talks on Instagram. Astro
Yogi.
Yes. Is it? Do I have that right? With
that's fine. That's Yogi. Fine. Let's move on. It's good. It's
okay. Good. Very good. Very good. And there's 3, and then of course he has the YouTube, and he's also with, and I will show you what he's also with me, John Chinworth, and this is he's skypath.com. You can find John there, and he does consultations. And Rob Passetti is Deep Earth. And do you have a talk or an event? Do you have the Magus that's coming up in Virginia?
I have so much coming up in the next few months. More responsibilities that I'm comfortable with. But yeah, you can just check them out on the website.
Okay, or email you.
Doing a lot of article writing right now.
Excellent. Well, for myself, I'm with Liz Mouchette, who has her YouTube. I'm one of her Astrology Star Sisters, Talk Over Tea, and we are going to do a series in the moon coming up this week. You can find that on my YouTube channel under videos featuring Sue Rose Minahan. And Justin does quite a few. He has a Chiron series. That's another one that's on my watch list. I mean, these are like favorite ideas of mine that I would just love to learn more about. Thank you for those folks that do subscribe to Talk Cosmos or on my website. And let's go on, because every voter needs to have information. It impairs the security of all otherwise. Here we have, I think,
this is the one we didn't go over yet. Yes.
Exactly. That's nicely diagrammed. I managed to do it. So look at that T-square. My goodness. And the sun right on her Mars. It's like we're moving ahead. She is the action lady here.
That Uranus, though, whew, that Uranus is going to really wake up that system. I mean, for me, this is where I would say I'd be a little happier with whole sign houses. I'd rather have that upset happen in the 11th house than in the 12th house. But you know,
well, then it is. It's
an upsetting of the. Oh, sorry.
Pardon me for interrupting, but I was thinking to support you. The way I look at it, because I am evolutionary, but I do listen to the traditional, it's very appropriate, is that it's a merge between the two of them. It is 11th house. She's talking to the Democratic Party. She's with all her constituents. And yet there is a collective basis in that 12th house. So it's not so controllable.
Right. Well, also I look at, I mean, that's to me, it's very much like upsetting or overthrowing the ox cart. And how I often look at it is what are the inherent relationships between those planets in the chart. And since it's she's got a trine between her Jupiter and Uranus, a little bit of a wide one, of course, but I think that will help add to it. And I think she probably learned how to take things, especially because the Uranus Pluto opposing her Chiron. She's learned to take things that are thrown at her and kind of change things up. It's been really entertaining to watch her evolve through this process with Trump. I mean, finding a good strategy to respond to crazy is not an easy thing to do while holding one's ground in one space. I mean, that, to be honest, is one of the aspects that happened to Biden, I think, personally. It's like when you're trying to present and you're a sane person, you're trying to present things and someone's throwing at you stuff that your mind's going like, it sends you into the rat cage. But that's how Trump is raised. So for him, he's it's a dogfight for Trump. So he just he'll throw out whatever he can to get reaction. But she's a freaking fighter. I mean, she's got a lot of fire. She's got a lot of air. She's got a lot of fire and air in her chart. I think it's, pretty close almost to a grand sextile that she's got going on. And I think through what she's gone through, especially since she can ground herself through those planets, the only planets she has in Earth are those three down there. And I think that gives her the ability to really kind of like come out fighting. Oh, well, hitting at her Jupiter too. Sorry.
I think she teaches the general public how to have discourse and how to talk to each other. And you've seen her say things like, wait a minute, I'm speaking. You see these things from her. And she really claims that, which I really like. And I'm looking at her Eris, her natal Eris, which is the upside down Mars in the 11th house. She's like this outsider in the collective to show how to do things. I think that's really interesting.
Inclusive. Yes. Let's be inclusive. Let's not be exclusive.
Right.
One of the criticisms of her in the past is that she's not fast on her feet at times, and that she'll sometimes respond to things in interviews, maybe not have the best answer right out the gate, and that would make sense with that kind of Jupiter and Taurus. It likes to be grounded. It likes to know what's going on. And I think that Uranus there could be, going back to what we were talking about with Uranus being that protester, like maybe there's some kind of message that she's going to really need to confront and do well with here to kind of get through that idea that, she's not, that she's avoiding interviews. They're saying she's, not taking tough questions. She didn't have policy. What happens when that Uranian moment where she gets that off guard tough question, or that off guard moment where protesters enter the building, like how does she handle that fastness on her feet and still expand in a Jupiterian way where she feels grounded?
I have to interject. I mean, that's interesting. When I look at criticism, I've learned to hold back and really observe it, which of course we do. But I'm looking at that Mercury in Scorpio. She knows what she wants to say, but she's a Libra. How am I going to manage to say this without clobbering them in some destructive manner?
One of her biggest benefits in this campaign so far is that she's actually been able to kind of take some of those things that she's done with the coconuts, you've heard, I'm sure, some of these just weird aphorisms that she's said in interviews in the past, and turn them into something that's fun and funny, and I'm a human being. And I think that's kind of going to be her best way, especially look at the, we're talking about the Uranus, but the other parts of that T-square are the sun, the moon, and Mars.
Yeah. The sun is trining her moon. That transiting sun is trining her moon, which is actually a very positive thing. I was going to point that out. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think she'll shine. I do. But I think she's going to be kind of confronted with that issue that, the people are waiting for.
Perhaps this is the burning, it's like you get into the fire, you have no other chance. You're molded by the fire because granted, as people have mentioned, she is rising to the occasion. She's been in a certain role as a VP, but she's quick. And in a sense, she's had no time. I notice on Facebook, there's lots that she's being demanded to do all at once. I think she's going to, good points, but we'll hope. Here, this is going to the Sibley chart. How much time do we have? Let's focus on what really pounces out. Something pounce out here where Kamala is with the U.S. because we have a Davidson with it too. Well, the moon and Saturn. That's really where she perhaps is bringing focus to a heart, a caring. That's her moon on our Saturn, which, is that right? No, it's got it mixed up. That's right, because the United States has
her Saturn on the U.S. moon. Right?
Yes, so she's perhaps bringing focus to our emotional dynamics that we have because that's a pretty strong dynamic that we have. It does rule our sun.
The interesting thing about this chart is that this is going to, if she is to get elected or not get elected, this is going to be about her relationship with the U.S. as a whole over the longer period of time. Less just about the election, more about how she's going to influence the U.S. as as its own country. So it's very interesting to see this more as a long-term projection as to what is going to happen.
Go ahead. No, I was going to say, I like the Venus Neptune thing there. She's definitely going to be, if she does get elected, she'll be the type of person that's going to try to fix things. With that Pluto and Venus and Uranus on the Neptune, it's almost like she has that Virgo aspect of wanting to fix things for the collective Neptune there,
And with Neptune, like things that people wouldn't even dream could get done.
Yeah.
And Jupiter in that 12th, that natal one that we were talking about, is in a quite a relationship of easy flow of transformation there with the United States Capricorn and Pluto, that we know we just went through that return, and we're still in a way going through the return, because after that the war didn't end. It started in 1776 and it didn't end until 1781, and then finally with the peace treaty in 83 is when it actually totally was resolved. But the action stopped in 81, and all during that time, or many years during that time, Pluto was in the very beginning degrees, such as it is now, in Aquarius, because we have a revolutionary Independence Day chart. We don't have a constitutional chart, but yet that constitutional is so important as we go along. So we're in this huge transition. So Jupiter is working between that transformation and action with her Saturn.
And that Sun Chiron aspect there. I mean, the real question is she going to have the wound, or is she going to be the healer? I mean, that's really what it comes down to. I mean, the fact that her Chiron is aspecting her sun so strongly, or I'm sorry, the nation's sun, the Sibley's sun, that could be very powerful.
Well, look at the Mercury Hygeia and Mars Hygeia thing going on there.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
talking about the wound
healing. Shall we go on? I know John and Michael haven't talked. Here we have a second progressed. I think because we have many, what I see is possibly the Venus, but can we Justin, you want to bring something to the attention? And then of course there is this Saturn.
Oh, I'll let Michael or John bring something,
and then let's move ahead. Michael, do you have anything?
I'm fine with us just going ahead. Yeah.
Okay. We have a Davison, which is the same thing. I'm not going to go into that, but it's here because this is possibly, we were talking about her relationship with the United States. Here we have a Davison. And again, we won't go into huge detail, although I did itemize all this with the United States. And in a sense, that's her with the Constitution. Then we have not Constitution, but the government as a whole, because she is the executive leader of the legislative branch, or would be if she's elected. And then we have a biwheel. So that's a Davison, but it's on top of the USA chart. And we can look at that as we the people. So there's that dynamics of looking at the US chart in two different ways. And what really strikes out for me is if you look at the 7th and the 8th house, I put arrows there. I did it chronologically 3 down to 8, but our natal sun is in the 7th house. And here Jupiter, transiting Jupiter, is it transiting Jupiter? Well, no, it's the Davison is augmenting right on top of our natal Mars. Our natal Mars is really a very powerful aspect or signature of our chart. When things trigger that, we act.
So the thing that jumps out to me about this is the Davison with US and Harris moon and Mercury on the natal US charts, Neptune, up there in the 9th.
Yeah, and in Virgo, isn't that an interesting polarity? It's really yep. And then the 8th house is conjunction that we have with Mars and Uranus again, which is like firecrackers. You know, it's immediate right now. Let's get action with our Mercury.
Just as a point, it seems like all of the a lot of the astrological weather going on with the actual DNC is very Uranian, and all of the action that she has with the United States as a whole tends to be very Neptunian.
Oh, I think we lost all our other, yes, Nate's trying to help us, but maybe I can squeeze in. Oh, is that the last one? Yeah, we have, this is a tri-wheel. We can speak for half a second while the music goes on. This is with the solar arc on, folks, look at this when you get a chance. It's the U.S. chart with our solar arc. That's like a measurement of time, 1 day for a year, along with the Democratic Convention. And you can see there's this T-square right off immediately speaking, with moon, our moon, that's actually as far as having a lunar return during this convention.
Interesting thing, the T-squares at Neptune and Uranus.
Woo! Well, we're collectively thankful to have dynamics. We're moving just like action in the universe.
Thank you for joining an insightful conversation on Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Rose Minahan and her panel of guests awaken consciousness by connecting soul growth patterns with astrology's energetic cycles. Be sure to tune in next Sunday, 1 p.m. Pacific Time, to continue your journey through the roots of the cosmic pathway.